The transport ship glided through the endless black of space, its engines humming softly like a whisper against the stars. Inside, rows of cadets sat strapped in their seats. Some were tall, with armored hides that shone under the dim lights. Some were scaled, with sharp eyes that reflected hunger and pride. A few were covered in fur, their claws clicking on the metal floor in impatience. And among them, almost invisible, sat the smallest figure of all, Riley Kane, the only human. In the group, her boots barely touched the floor. Her uniform was too stiff, too new, as if it still belonged to the shop that made it. The other cadets whispered to each other in alien tongues, but their laughter needed no translation. Heads turned toward her, and mocking eyes followed her. Every twitch. "She is the prey," one reptilian cadet hissed to his friend. His tongue flicked between his teeth. "Humans are soft," another chuckled, a tall insectoid with blades on its arms. "She will not last one day in the drills." Even the large predator species cadets, who normally respected strength, only sneered. "Her bones will snap before the first trial." Riley heard them. She kept her face straight, but her stomach twisted. She had trained for years, pushed herself harder than anyone back on Earth, yet here she was already dismissed as weak before even stepping onto the academy grounds. The shuttle shook slightly as it pierced through the thin clouds of the training world. Below, mountains cut sharp lines across the horizon. The academy itself stretched like a fortress, its towers piercing the sky, its landing platforms alive with activity. Hundreds of cadets marched in formation. Warships hung overhead, their shadows darkening the ground below. This was no simple school. This was the Galactic War Academy, the place where only the strongest species survived training. The transport landed with a metallic thud. The doors hissed open, and the cadets stepped out one by one, their postures proud, their bodies gleaming under the suns above. Riley followed last, her small frame almost lost among them. An alien officer waited for them, towering in black armor. His skin was dark green, ridged with scars from battles long past. His voice was sharp, like steel scraping against stone. "Cadets," he roared, "welcome to the Crucible. Here, weakness will be carved out of you, or it will destroy you." The officer's gaze scanned across the line of recruits. When his eyes landed on Riley, he paused. A smirk crept across his face. "A human?" he said loudly so that all could hear. "They send me prey to train as soldiers." "Very well. Let us see how quickly the prey learns to die." Laughter exploded around her. Riley's face burned. But she kept silent. She knew reacting would only feed them. Yet inside, her heart pounded so hard she thought they could all hear it. They were led into the grand courtyard of the academy. Statues of legendary warriors lined the path, each one representing a hero from a different species. They were giants, monsters, killers, all frozen in glorious poses of victory. Riley felt small, so small walking among them. The message was clear. Only those who conquered fear earned a place here. Their first trial began almost immediately. The officer barked an order, and the cadets were herded toward a massive arena built into the mountainside. The walls rose high, lined with observation decks where other students and commanders watched. The floor was scarred from countless battles, blackened from fire and stained with the dust of old blood. "This is the combat initiation," the officer announced. "You will face simulated enemies. You will fight in squads. Survive and you may have a future. Fail and you will crawl back to your nest worlds in shame." The squads were formed quickly. Riley was shoved into one with 5 aliens who clearly didn't want her. Their leader, a towering beast with horns and thick arms, groaned when he saw her. "Do not get in our way, human. Stay behind us and try not to die." Riley opened her mouth to reply, then closed it. What was the point? She adjusted her helmet instead and checked the training weapon slung at her side. The simulation began. Holographic enemies appeared across the arena. towering war drones programmed to attack with brutal precision. The cadets charged forward, roaring their war cries. Claws slashed, plasma rifles fired, and energy blades cut through the holograms. Riley tried to keep up, but every time she aimed her rifle, someone else had already taken the kill. "Too slow, human," one cadet shouted. "She hides behind us." Another jeered. Her squad pushed deeper into the arena. The enemies grew stronger, faster. Riley noticed something odd movement in the shadows beyond the holograms. She frowned. This wasn't part of the drill briefing. Then it came. The ground shook. A deep, rumbling growl echoed through the arena, silencing even the cadets. Roars. The holograms flickered, their programs disrupted. The officer above shouted something in alarm, but his voice was drowned by the sound of heavy footsteps. Out of the shadows stepped a creature larger than any simulation. Its hide was black as void, its eyes burning with unnatural fire. Teeth, like swords, gleamed as it snarled, and its tail lashed, cutting deep scars into the arena floor. The cadets froze. Even the bravest among them felt their knees weaken. This was not part of the program. This was something else, something real. The apex predator. One alien whispered in horror. Riley's breath caught. She had heard rumors. Every species feared this beast. It was not supposed to be here, not in a training arena. Yet here it stood, its gaze sweeping across the cadets like a hunter choosing its meal. The squads broke formation. Panic spread. Cadets scrambled for cover, weapons raised but hands shaking. Some shouted to abort the drill. Others fired wildly, their blasts bouncing harmlessly off the creature's armored hide. The predator ignored them. Its burning eyes locked. Onto Riley, her squad shouted at her. "Run, human! Run!" But her legs didn't move. Something inside her, fear, instinct, or something deeper, held her ground. She tightened her grip on her weapon, though she knew it was useless. The predator stepped closer, each stride making the ground tremble. Its massive head lowered, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air between them. Riley's heart thundered, but she didn't back away. She whispered under her breath, words only she could hear. "Not like this. I won't be prey." The predator snarled, and every cadet flinched. But Riley lifted her chin and stared straight into its burning eyes. For a heartbeat, the arena fell. Silent. Then the creature stopped. It tilted its head slightly, as if studying her. Its growl softened, rumbling low in its chest. The cadets gasped as the beast took one step back and lowered its head, almost like a bow. The arena erupted in chaos. Some cadets screamed in disbelief. Others shouted that it was impossible. The officer above gripped the railing, his face frozen in shock. And Riley Kane, the rookie human mocked as weak and worthless, stood trembling, yet unbroken, before the galaxy's most feared predator. She didn't understand why it had spared her. She didn't understand why it bowed. But she knew one thing. Nothing in the academy would ever be the same again. The arena still shook with silence. Dust floated in the air. Cadets clung to the walls, their claws, talons, and armored feet trembling. Weapons hung limp in their hands, useless against what had just happened. The apex predator, the nightmare of countless worlds, had bowed, not to a warlord, not to a general, not to a champion, but to a human rookie, Riley Kane. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if the universe itself had stopped to witness this impossible moment. Then chaos returned. "What trick is this?" One reptilian cadet shouted. "It cannot bow." "It kills everything," cried another. The insectoid with bladed arms slammed the ground in rage. "The human cheated. The program is broken." High above, the alien officer barked orders, his voice sharp with panic. "Contain the beast, reset the arena, remove the human." But the predator did not move to attack. It stood calmly in front of Riley, its massive head lowered, its blazing eyes locked onto her as if awaiting command. The other cadets dared not step closer. Even the bravest predator species among them lowered their gaze. Riley's hands trembled, but she kept her stance. Her heart pounded so loudly that it drowned the noise of the arena. She had no idea why the beast had stopped. She had no idea why it looked at her this way. But every instinct told her not to run, not to flinch, not to show fear now. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the predator growled softly, a low rumble that echoed like thunder rolling through mountains. The sound wasn't a threat, it was acknowledgement. The officer leapt down into the arena, his armored boots smashing the ground. His expression was carved from fury and confusion. He marched straight to Riley, towering over her like a mountain. Of rage, "What did you do, human?" he demanded, voice booming. "Tell me now." Riley opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she say? That she had stood still. That she had looked into its eyes and refused to run. That somehow, against all logic, it had chosen not to kill her. I did nothing," she whispered. The officer's eyes narrowed. He didn't believe her. He turned to the predator, raising his staff high. "Beast, test her then. If she is prey, devour her. If she is predator, prove it." Gasps rippled across the watching cadets. The order was insane. To pit a rookie against the most feared monster in the galaxy? It was a death sentence. The predator straightened, muscles rippling under its armored hide. Its massive claws dug into the ground, its tail whipping like a blade through the air. It roared, a sound so powerful that the very walls of the arena shook. Riley's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to survive. But something else rose inside her, something stubborn, something fierce. If she ran now, she would forever be prey. The predator lunged. The ground cracked under its weight as it charged. Its massive jaws opened, teeth glinting like swords, breath hot like fire. The cadets screamed from the sidelines, certain they were about to see human blood paint the arena floor. Riley moved. Not away, not to retreat, but to the side. She ducked low, rolling across the ground just as the predator's claws slammed into dirt where she had been. Dust exploded into the air. She scrambled to her feet, heart hammering. Her training weapon shook in her hands, but she raised it anyway, aiming for the beast's eye. The predator whipped its head toward her, jaws snapping inches from her body. She leapt back, firing. The blast hit its hide but did nothing. It was like throwing sparks against a mountain, but Riley wasn't aiming to kill. She was buying time. She studied its movements, its rhythm, the way it twisted before it struck, the way its tail shifted balance before a leap. Every motion was a pattern, every pattern a clue. Her squadmates had mocked her for being slow, for hiding behind others. But Riley had always been an observer. On Earth, she had watched, studied, predicted. She didn't have strength or speed like the others. What she had was patience. The predator lunged again. This time, Riley was ready. She dove aside, shouting instinctively to the cadets nearest her, "Left flank, now!" They hesitated, then obeyed without thinking. Plasma fire rained down on the predator's exposed side. It roared in fury, twisting, distracted just enough for Riley to reposition. "Circle it. Don't shoot its hide, go for the joints." She shouted at the cadets, shocked by her sudden authority, followed her orders. Their shots hammered the beast's knees and shoulders, forcing it to stumble. For a moment, it looked like the predator might fall, but then it stopped. Instead of striking back, it froze in place. Its glowing eyes turned again to Riley. The blasts hitting its body no longer mattered. The cadets' shouts no longer mattered. Slowly, deliberately, it lowered itself again, crouching until its massive head was bowed before her. Silence. Every cadet in the arena stared in disbelief. The officers, mouth hung open, words lost. Even the predator species recruits, who had spent their lives worshipping strength, could not comprehend what they were seeing. The predator had chosen, not them. Not the strongest, the fastest, or the fiercest. It had chosen the weakest species. In the academy, it had chosen the human. Riley stood frozen, her weapon still raised. She didn't understand. Why her? Why now? The officer growled, anger boiling in his voice. Unacceptable. This is no test. This is corruption. The beast must be broken. He raised his staff to strike the predator. But before he could, the monster let out a thunderous roar, shaking the entire arena. The officer froze mid-swing, his face pale with sudden fear. The predator's burning eyes glared at him, not in rage but in warning. The message was clear. Harm the human, and face me. The officer lowered his weapon slowly, his jaw tight with fury. Enough, he spat. The trial is over. The predator backed away, but its gaze never left Riley. Even as the arena gates opened and containment fields reactivated, the beast lingered at the edge, watching her with the focus of a soldier. Awaiting orders, Riley's legs shook. Her lungs burned as if she had run for hours. She wanted to collapse, to disappear, to wake up from this madness, but she stayed standing. She had to. Too many eyes were on her now. The cadets whispered among themselves. She commands it. No, impossible. It's a trick. She's not prey. Back in the barracks, the whispers turned to arguments. Some cadets insisted it was luck, a glitch, an accident. Others were less certain. Fear crept into their voices whenever they spoke her name. The academy itself was in uproar. Commanders debated in secret chambers. Scientists pored over data from the trial. The predator's behavior broke every law of their understanding. Never before had it submitted. Never before had it spared. And always, the same question burned on every tongue. Why her? Riley sat alone on her bunk, staring at her trembling hands. She had no answer. She only knew that something had changed. She was no longer invisible. No longer just a joke human. But change came with danger. Already, she could feel the eyes. On her, the officers who doubted her, the cadets who hated her, the commanders who wanted to use her. And somewhere out there, the predator itself, waiting for what? For her orders. The academy did not sleep that night. Whispers ran through the steel halls like wildfire. In the mess halls, cadets leaned close, speaking in hushed tones. In the training yards, soldiers paused mid-drill, their eyes darting to the human rookie. Whenever she walked by, even in the high command towers, officers and generals argued until their voices grew hoarse. Everyone had seen it. The predator that bowed. The human that stood. Riley Kane, once invisible, once mocked as prey, now carried a shadow larger than herself. She felt it pressing down with every step. Eyes burned into her back, some filled with fear, some with suspicion, others with hatred. When she entered the mess hall the next morning, the air froze. Plates clattered, conversations died. The insectoid cadet who had mocked her 2 days ago tightened his claws around his food tray until it cracked. The reptilian recruits hissed softly. Tails lashing, Riley tried to act normal. She collected her ration and sat at the far end of the hall. Her hands shook as she lifted her fork. She forced herself to chew, though her stomach churned. She wanted silence. She wanted to disappear again. But silence did not come. A booming laugh shattered the stillness. The horned beast from her squad stomped across the hall, his massive arms swinging. He slammed his tray down across from her, meat splattering from the force. "You," he growled, pointing a thick finger at her. "You gave orders in the arena." Riley froze. I was only trying to survive." But he cut her off. "You saved my flank. Without your shout, I would have been crushed. I owe you that," the mess hall murmured. The words were unexpected. Aliens who had laughed at her now tilted their heads, uncertain. The horned cadet leaned closer. "But do not think I kneel to you, human." Respect is earned in battle. If the predator bows to you, then prove to us you deserve it." He stood, snarling, and walked away. Riley sat stiff, heart pounding. She could feel the weight of every gaze again, sharper now than ever. She wasn't just a joke anymore. She was a question. And questions were dangerous. That afternoon, Riley was summoned. 2 guards escorted her up spiraling towers into the command chamber. The walls gleamed with alien runes, and at the center stood a table of polished stone. Around it sat generals of many species, scaled, armored, furred, feathered, each with ranks etched deep into their armor. At the head of the table sat Commander Tharos, the same officer who had unleashed the predator during the trial. His scarred face was unreadable as his piercing eyes studied her. "Cadet Kane," he said at last, his voice low but heavy. "Explain what happened." Riley's throat went dry. "Sir, I don't know. I didn't do anything special." "Lies," snapped a feathered general, his wings bristling. "No creature bows without cause. You have bonded with it. Admit it." "I didn't bond with anything," Riley protested. "I just didn't run." The chamber fell silent. Some generals frowned. Others leaned back, whispering to each other. Commander Tharos's eyes narrowed further. "Not running," he repeated softly. "Courage or foolishness." The feathered general slammed the table. "This is dangerous. The predator should not obey prey. It is a weapon, not a pet." "Yet it bowed," Tharos said, never looking away from Riley. "And that changes everything." The chamber erupted into arguments again. Some shouted that the human should be expelled. Others demanded more tests. A few whispered that perhaps she had proven herself worthy. Through it all, Riley stood frozen, her hands shaking. She wanted to tell them she was no threat, that she didn't understand any of this. But deep inside, a spark of something else stirred. She remembered the predator's eyes, burning yet steady. The way it had stopped when she told her squad to flank. The way it had bowed, not in defeat, but in respect. Maybe it had seen something in her that she didn't see in herself. The next day, the academy put her through another trial. This time, it wasn't a simulated arena. It was a jungle world within. The academy grounds filled with real dangers, razor-beaked flyers, acid-spitting beasts, and shifting terrain that swallowed the careless whole. Each squad was dropped into different zones. Riley found herself again with the horned cadet and 3 others. None spoke to her at first. They kept their distance, eyes filled with distrust. But when the first beast attacked a massive insect bursting from the trees, they faltered. The horned cadet swung too wide. The reptilian tripped in the mud. Chaos spread. Riley shouted without thinking, "Hold formation, spread out, hit its underbelly." They hesitated, but obeyed. Together, they brought the monster down. For a moment, silence filled the jungle. Then the reptilian cadet hissed. "How did you know its weakness?" Riley shrugged, panting. "I watched it. The armor on top was too thick. But when it reared up, the belly was exposed." The horned cadet grunted, staring at her differently now. Not with mockery, not with hate, but with thought. The mission grew harder. Night fell, and the jungle screamed with predators. The squad huddled around a dim fire, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It was then that the horned cadet spoke again. "You are strange, human. You see things others do not." Riley poked the fire with a stick, unsure how to answer. She had always been small, always underestimated. She had learned to survive by watching, by predicting, by finding paths others missed. Maybe here, that weakness had become strength. When they returned, bruised but alive, the whispers spread faster than ever. She led them. She saw what no one else saw. She is prey no longer. By the 3rd trial, things had changed. Riley's squad did not push her aside. They waited for her words. Even when commanders tested them with impossible odds, waves of drones. Collapsing terrain, surprise ambush, her voice cut through panic. Hold steady. Not yet. Wait for the opening. Now strike. And each time, they survived, but respect was not universal. Many cadets hated her even more now. To them, her rise was an insult. If a human could lead, what did that mean for the strongest species of the galaxy? One night, as Riley returned to her quarters, shadows moved. A clawed hand grabbed her shoulder and shoved her into the wall. 3 cadets surrounded her, the insectoid with bladed arms, a reptilian, and a wolf-like predator. You! Shame us, the insectoid hissed. His blades clicked menacingly. The predator bows to you. Our commanders praise you, but you are nothing. You are prey pretending to be hunter. Rayleigh's chest tightened, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. If you believe that, she said quietly, then beat me in the trials. Not in the dark, the insectoid growled, pressing the blade closer. For a moment, she thought he would strike. But then the horned cadet's voice thundered down the hall. Enough! He stomped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over them all. She fights with me. Touch her again, and you face me. The attackers sneered, but backed away. There. Eyes burned with hate, but they didn't dare challenge him. Not now, when they were gone. Riley exhaled shakily. She looked up at the horned cadet. Why protect me? He crossed his arms, because respect is earned. And you have earned mine. From that night, things shifted. Not all cadets accepted her, but enough did. Whispers of mockery turned into whispers of caution. Some even whispered of admiration. And always, in the background, the predator remained. Whenever Riley entered the arena, it appeared. Whenever she shouted orders, it listened. It did not bow every time, but its eyes always followed her, as if waiting, as if guarding. The galaxy's deadliest beast had chosen its allegiance. And in doing so, it had forced others to choose as well. By the end of the cycle, one truth had spread through the academy, carried in fearful whispers and reluctant. Respect. The human was no longer prey. She was something far more dangerous. The training grounds were silent. The silence was not natural. It was heavy, stretched, almost unnatural. Soldiers, officers, and even the alien recruits all stood still, their eyes locked on one impossible scene, the apex predator, the most feared warrior of the galaxy, lowering its head in a gesture of respect toward a human rookie. Mira could still feel her knees trembling. She had not asked for this. She had not wanted this. All she had done was give an order in panic, hoping to survive. Yet now, somehow, the apex predator stood still, massive body coiled with dangerous strength, and it waited for her command. The other soldiers stared at her with wide eyes. Some looked horrified, others jealous, but most were simply confused. This had never happened in the history of the training program. Captain Drax was the first to break the silence. His voice shook. This is impossible. The apex predator does not submit to humans. It does not follow anyone. It kills, it hunts, it destroys. But no one answered him. Their attention was fixed on Mira and the monster that waited at her feet. Mira swallowed hard. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear, but her voice came out, shaky but clear. Stand down, she whispered. The apex predator moved. Slowly. Carefully, it lowered itself even further until it rested on one knee, claws digging into the dirt, as if acknowledging her words. A sound rippled through the crowd. Gasps, disbelief, and murmurs spread like fire. One alien recruit, a tall insectoid creature, hissed in shock. It obeys her. It obeys. Mira took a step back, her heart hammering. She did not feel like a leader. She did not feel strong. But the predator was still waiting, still respecting her order. General Vera, the commander of the academy, stepped forward. Her armored boots crushed the gravel beneath her feet. She was a towering alien, her body sharp and metallic like living steel. Her four glowing eyes fixed on Mira. "Human rookie," she said, her voice like grinding stone. "Do you understand what has happened here?" Mira shook her head. "No, I don't." General Vera's eyes narrowed. "The apex predator has chosen you. It has recognized something in you. Something even we cannot understand. Do you realize what this means?" Mira stayed silent. She was too afraid to answer. The general continued. "It means the impossible has happened. A predator that does not bow to kings, that does not obey generals, has saluted you. You are no longer just a rookie. You are now bound to it. Its honor is tied to yours. Its power will follow your orders." The crowd erupted again. Some shouted in disbelief. "This cannot be true. It's a trick. She doesn't deserve this." Others looked at Mira with a strange new fear. They were afraid not of her, but of what she now represented. Mira's stomach twisted. She wanted to scream that. She didn't want this, that it was a mistake. But then she saw the predator again, its glowing red eyes locked on her, waiting. It was not just an animal, it understood. It had chosen her. General Vera raised a hand, and silence fell once more. "There will be a test," the general said. "If this bond is real, then the human will command the predator in combat. If it obeys her in battle, then we will accept the truth. If not, then both will die." Mira's blood ran cold. That night, Mira sat alone in the barracks. The other recruits avoided her. Even those who had laughed at her before now kept their distance. Some whispered insults, others whispered prayers, but none dared to face her directly. She stared at her hands. They were still shaking. How did this happen? She whispered to herself. She thought back to that moment. She had shouted at the predator, told it to stop, and it had listened. Why? What made her different? She was just a rookie. She had no rank, no special skills, no great destiny. Her thoughts were interrupted by a low growl. She turned, and her heart nearly stopped. The apex predator stood at the entrance of the barracks. Its massive form blocked the doorway, shadows stretching across the walls. Recruits scrambled away in terror, some dropping their weapons, others diving under bunks, but the predator ignored them. Its eyes focused only on Mira. She stood slowly, her breath caught in her throat. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. The predator tilted its head. Then, to everyone's shock, it lowered its body again, kneeling before her. Mira stared at it, unable to understand. "Why her? Do you understand me?" she whispered. The predator growled low, but the sound was not threatening. It was almost an answer. The recruits who had stayed to watch gasped. One muttered, "She's talking to it. It listens to her." Mira stepped closer, her fear battling against curiosity. She reached out a trembling hand, and for a moment, she hesitated. Then, she touched its armored skin. It was rough, scarred, and hot with power. The predator did not attack. It stayed still. Something stirred inside Mira. A strange, cold certainty. Maybe she didn't understand why, but the predator had chosen her, and if she rejected it, she would die. But if she accepted, maybe she could survive. She looked into its glowing eyes and whispered, "Then we fight together." The predator let out a deep, rumbling growl that shook the floor. It was not anger. It was agreement. The next day, the test began. The entire academy gathered in the combat arena. The stands were filled with recruits, officers, and alien dignitaries. Even generals who rarely left their warships came to witness this event. The arena gates opened, and Mira walked out, her body stiff with fear. The apex predator walked beside her, towering over her like a living shadow. The crowd roared with whispers and shouts. She'd be torn apart. No human can control that thing. This will end in blood. Mira clenched her fists. She could feel the eyes of thousands pressing down on her. But when she looked to her side, the predator was calm, waiting. General. Vera's voice boomed across the arena. Today we witness the trial. If the human can command the apex predator in combat, then the bond is real. If not, both shall die here. The gates on the far side of the arena opened. From the shadows emerged 3 massive war beasts, each bred for destruction. Their bodies were plated with armor, their jaws dripping with venom, their eyes burning with rage. The crowd cheered in anticipation. Mira froze. The beasts were terrifying. She had no weapon, no armor, nothing but her voice. The predator at her side growled, its claws digging into the dirt, ready to strike. Mira swallowed hard. She forced her shaking legs to move. She stepped forward and raised her voice. Attack! The predator roared and launched forward with terrifying speed. The arena shook as it slammed into the first war beast, claws tearing through armor like paper. The beast shrieked and fell, broken. The crowd gasped. The second beast charged, jaws wide open. Mira's heart stopped. Left! She shouted. The predator spun left with perfect timing, avoiding the beast's bite, then struck with a brutal slash that ripped its throat open. Blood sprayed across the sand. The third beast hesitated, growling in confusion. Mira felt something rising inside her. Fear was still there, but now it mixed with something else. Power. Finish it! She screamed. The predator leapt high, higher than seemed possible, and came down with crushing force. The last beast was torn apart in an instant. Silence filled the arena. Mira stood frozen, her chest heaving. The predator returned to her side, lowering its head again, as if waiting for her approval. Then the silence broke. The crowd erupted. Some screamed in awe, others in terror. But all of them knew the truth now. The bond was real. General Vera's eyes glowed brighter. In all my years, she said slowly, I have never seen such a thing. The predator obeys the human. It does not just fight, it follows her command. This changes everything. Mira looked around dazed. She had survived. She had done the impossible, but deep inside, she also felt a warning. If the galaxy saw her as a threat now, then they would not just fear her. They would try to use her. Or kill her. The predator growled softly beside her, as if it knew her thoughts. Mira looked up at it and whispered, What have you dragged me into? The predator gave no answer, but its eyes burned like fire, and Mira realized something chilling. This was only the beginning. The sun barely pierced the dense clouds over the training arena. Shadows stretched across the cracked ground, casting long dark lines that seemed almost alive. Every cadet in the academy had gathered to witness the final trial. It was no longer about proving strength or skill. It was about proving command, courage, and survival in the face of the impossible. Mira Kane stood at the center of the arena, the apex predator beside her. Its massive form pressed the ground, muscles coiled, eyes burning red as ever. For the first time, Mira felt the weight of her responsibility. Thousands of eyes were on her. Thousands of judgments waited to be passed. And beyond that, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. General Vera's voice boomed from above. Cadet Kane, she called, her tone cold but commanding. Today you face the ultimate test. You will fight not just simulations. You will fight your own fears, your own doubts, and your squad will depend on you. Fail, and nothing will remain. Mira's chest tightened. She looked at her squad, the horned cadet, the reptilian, the insectoid, and the wolf-like warrior who had once tried to attack her. Their expressions were unreadable, but all eyes were on her. She inhaled deeply, reminding herself that she had survived worse than fear. She had survived disbelief, mockery, even death or near death, and lived. The arena doors opened. From the shadows emerged an army. Not cadets, not simulations. Real, living, deadly creatures bred for war. They were massive, faster than anything. she had ever seen, and their eyes glowed with malice. Each step they took shook the earth. The air smelled of smoke, fear, and metal. The crowd gasped. Whispers ran through the stands like wildfire. Impossible. No one survives this. The rookie. Mira swallowed hard. She could feel her heartbeat pounding in her ears. But beside her, the predator lowered its head slightly, brushing against her leg in a silent show of loyalty. Somehow that small gesture gave her the courage to speak. "Form up," she shouted. "Defend, flank, survive." Her squad hesitated, but then the horned cadet stepped forward. "We follow you, human," he said, voice steady now. "Lead, and we fight." The predator growled low in agreement, and the ground trembled under its massive weight as it moved forward. The first wave of enemies charged. Claws, teeth, blades, and fangs flashed in the dim light. Cadets fired their plasma rifles, but the creatures were relentless. One snapped at the horned cadet's leg. Mira screamed, "Left!" Now! The predator lunged with terrifying speed, striking the creature. In a single motion that made the cadet's jaws drop. Blood and smoke filled the arena. It was brutal, fast and precise. The second wave attacked from above. Flying beasts, enormous and wind, swooped down, claws extended. The cadets panicked, firing randomly. Mira's voice rang out, cutting through. "The chaos. Focus. Target the wings first. Don't let them land." The predator jumped, claws cutting through the nearest flyer's wing, sending it spiraling to the ground. Mira's heart pounded as she shouted orders, her small voice commanding the deadly beast beside her. Wave after wave came. The arena shook. Dust rose, screams echoed, and yet Mira never faltered. Her squad moved with her, learning her commands, trusting her instincts. The predator struck with precision, following her direction without hesitation. Suddenly, from the far side of the arena, a massive shadow fell across the battlefield. The ground cracked, the air shifted. A creature larger than the rest emerged, a Titan-class warbeast, bred for mass destruction, with armor plates thicker than anything in the Academy arsenal. Its roar was deafening, shaking the very walls. Mira froze. This was beyond everything they had trained for. Even the predator hesitated for a fraction of a second, a hesitation that made every cadet gasp. The horned cadet looked at her. "We can't fight that," he said quietly. "We'll die." Mira took a deep breath. Fear hit her like a tidal wave, but she forced it down. This was not the time to run. This was the time to lead. "Use the terrain," she shouted. "Distract it. The predator will strike its weak spots. Everyone else cover and flank." The squad moved as one, following her instructions. The flying creatures swooped to distract the Titan's attention. The ground cadets dodged its massive claws, weaving between craters and rubble. The predator circled the Titan, analyzing its movements. Mira realized that this was the moment she had trained for, not physically, but mentally. She studied the Titan's rhythm, noticing the pattern in its massive swings, the slight delay after each strike. "Now!" she shouted. The predator leapt with impossible speed, moving under the Titan's guard and striking at the joints where the armor plates overlapped. Sparks flew. The Titan bellowed in pain and rage, staggering. Mira ran forward, signaling her squad. They attacked together, hitting the exposed areas, distracting the beast, and keeping it off balance. The predator's strikes grew more precise, each movement perfectly timed with Mira's commands. The arena shook with chaos. Cadets and creatures collided. Dust and fire filled the air. Screams of pain and rage echoed. Mira's lungs burned. Her arms shook, but she never stopped directing, never stopped commanding. Hours or what felt like hours passed. Wave after wave attacked, each stronger than the last. Mira's voice never faltered. The predator stayed loyal, guarding her, following her commands, striking with precision. Finally, after what felt like eternity, only the Titan remained. It roared, swinging its massive tail, knocking down cadets and debris. Mira felt her chest tighten with fear. This was it. The final moment. Predator! She screamed. Left flank, strike the core now. The Predator obeyed without hesitation. It moved under the Titan's massive legs, slashing upward into the weak spot beneath its armor. The creature roared, staggering. Mira's squad attacked. Together, exploiting the Titan's vulnerable points, following her orders perfectly. With one final strike from the Predator, the Titan fell to the ground, shaking the arena. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Dust settled. Breathing echoed. Mira stood trembling, sweat and grime covering her, as the Predator knelt beside her once again, its massive head lowered in respect. General Vera stepped forward, her eyes wide. This is impossible," she whispered. The human commanded the apex predator and survived the ultimate test. Not just survived, she led, she fought, she triumphed. Cadets cheered, some still in disbelief. Some whispered, in awe. Even the officers who had doubted her now bowed their heads in respect. Mira looked at the predator. Its glowing eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, she felt a strange understanding pass between them. She had not asked for this bond. She had not asked for power. But now she carried responsibility beyond anything she had imagined. The Academy had witnessed the impossible. A human had led, commanded, and survived. A predator had chosen her as a leader. And in that moment, fear had turned into respect. That would not be forgotten. Mira Kane, the rookie, had become legend. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would watch now. Enemies would come. Challenges would rise. And she would face them, not alone, but with the predator at her side, bound to her commands, ready for whatever came next. The ultimate test was over. The story of the rookie, who had been a joke, but had earned the loyalty of a monster, would echo through the halls of the Academy for generations. And the predator, silent and massive beside her, seemed to say without words, "We fight together, always." Mira nodded, swallowing hard. She didn't fully understand the bond. She didn't fully understand the predator. But she knew one thing. Whatever came next, she would face it with courage. She would lead. She would survive. And she would never be prey again. The sun dipped behind the clouds, casting a golden glow over the arena. Dust swirled in the wind. The cadets, the generals, the spectators all watched as the human and the predator stood together, a symbol of the impossible, a reminder that courage and leadership could come from the smallest and most unlikely of warriors. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the galaxy, forces were taking notice. The rookie had survived. The predator had chosen her. And the universe would never be the same again.